My friends, welcome back. Welcome back to the MD Medic Podcast. So I know it seems like I've been talking about fighting a whole lot recently. And yes, that is true, but it seems to be a recurring theme that has been unrolling in my life. So I ended up last week taking another fight, an unexpected one at that, and a grudge match, if you will. There was an unscrupulous young gentleman who thought it wise to disrespect me and issue to me a personal call out. So instead of trash talking, I'm not one to talk trash, and more about action, I just challenged him to come to my gym, sign a waiver, and have a full MMA fight. To which he responded, "Oh, I don't fight in a ring. I'm not going to fight in a ring or in a cage or with rules. I'm a street fighter. I'm not going to fight with rules." So I responded to him, "Let's have a pro rules MMA fight," which pro rules are essentially no rules at all. Almost all strikes are legal except for strikes to the back of the head, pokes to the eyes, stomping the head of a grounded fighter, or low blows. And he did nothing but make excuses. Excuse after excuse after excuse of why he couldn't show up until finally he showed up. So here's what led up to this call out, to this fight, to this confrontation. So there's a person who is very dear to me. And this person was disrespected and threatened by this young man. And after finding out about this, I told this lady, the person who's very dear to me, if he does this again, please let me know. And I will be there to make sure that there is no disrespect or there is no threats. She communicated this to this guy. And he responded, "I'm not scared of him." And I'll quote exactly what he said. And he responded, and I quote, "I'm not afraid of him. He ain't shit. I fought MMA fighters before. I will whoop his ass." And I'm not one to talk crap. When this was relayed to me, instead of talking drunk back, instead of just running my mouth a bunch, I simply just issued him a challenge. So there was many excuses and many reasons to why he should try to dodge this challenge. First he said, "Oh, I have to go to work." And then he said, "Oh, I have an appointment." And then he said, "Oh, I might have to work overtime." And then he said, "Oh, my car broke down." And then he said again, "Oh, I think I have to work." Until finally, I absolutely just called him out straightly. And I said, "Hey, if you're really scared and you're really not who you say you are, and you really don't want to fight me, you could just say, 'Hey, I didn't mean what I said. I don't actually want to fight you. I'm scared. I don't actually think I can beat you. I'm sorry for what I said, and I will accept that. I will let you off the hook, and I will recant my challenge. You will not have to come and fight me, but if you are going to stay and stand on your words against me, stand on your call out, then you must be a man, and you must come and cash those checks with your hands that your mouth wrote." So finally, this guy shows up for the fight. And I wanted to be very fair because I'm a gentleman, of course. I let my gym know in advance that this was going to happen. I had someone referee the fight. I had someone be a cut man, put Vaseline on him, made sure he had a mouth guard, a cup, gloves. Everything was done to regulation. We had a round timer. We set it up like a real MMA fight, and we were going to have a 3-round fight in my gym. So I come, he comes. We had him sign a waiver just so that if anything happens to him, he is taking full liability for what happens to him stepping into combat with me. So this gentleman, after making several excuses and many attempts to dodge the challenge, he surprisingly showed up to the fight after being pressured by me and by his peers and by other people around him to not be a pussy. So this guy, he showed up, and he was swiftly given his due recompense, of course. I soundly defeated this guy, and he learned his lesson. So I clearly dominated this guy throughout the entire fight, as you will see in the video that I'm going to show you. And many times from the sidelines, you can hear my coach yelling, "Hey, please go light on him. Please don't hurt him." I got the guy in a clinch, tight clinch, arms around his head, and I was kneeing him repeatedly in the face. My coach said, "No knees and elbows to the face." You'll hear him say that in the video because he saw that I was so clearly dominating this guy that he didn't want me to inflict serious damage that can be done from knees and elbows. So I respected my coach's wishes, and I transitioned from the clinch and brought him to the ground. Very quickly got on top of him in full mount. I started hitting him with ground and pound, hammer fist on top of him, bust him up in the face. My coach once again said, "Hey, you're clearly dominant here. Please don't hurt him. No ground and pound to the face." You'll hear him say this. So because I respect my coach, I let him off easy. I got out of ground and pound and went and looked for a submission. So You'll see the events of the fight. You'll hear my coach yelling from the sideline, please go easy, please don't hurt him, don't do knees and elbows to the face, don't do ground and pound, because I was clearly just outclassing this guy, and I didn't even have to use these extremely violent techniques to beat him. So, here's the video. Enjoy.
It works. Okay. All right. You guys ready? 3 3-minute rounds. Ready? Set. Go. Oh, shit. You ever want to stop? Just say it, by the way. That makes somebody go. Nice straight. Not the face, man. Okay. No deep voice in the face. Stay focused.
Nice transition right there. You gotta pull him out. You gotta pull him out. There you go.
Tap if you need to. Hey, no face. No face.
No ground and pound. Or no face on him.
Yeah, no face down.
Alright.
Don't go past your limits. Breathe, breathe. Don't do nothing that you just can't log in. Be smart about everything. Go with you guys. Stay there. Stay right on the bottom. 2 minutes left. You guys show something. Come on. Show something. What was the action? Tap if you need to, man. Tap if you need to. Tap if you need to. Don't let your arms go. If I feel like it's going to snap, I'm going to stop it. It's like we're in the gym. Just all Dr. Harris fight. Breathe. Breathe. Come on, show some action, guys.
The body's where it's at, man. You can't ground and pound. Oh, no. His arm, his arm.
What's that? What's that? Good shit. Good shit, girl. Good day, guys.
So as you guys can see, out of respect for my coaches, wishes for me to go light on this man and not to cause serious injury, I adjusted my strategy. I could have KO'd him many times. A couple more knees to the face from the clinch, and that would have been done. But my coach asked me to stop. I got on top of him in the mount, started ground and pound. That would have been a TKO, but my coach asked me to stop, so I ended up finishing it with a submission. The victory was overwhelmingly clear. Despite the mercy, the point was proven. Now, I didn't just do this podcast episode just to talk about the events of this fight, but more so to talk about the lessons that were learned from it. We will start off with this one. Instead of talking trash, you should be a gentleman and speak with actions instead of words. Humility and honor are always the best policy. Quiet respect, backed up by resolute action, is always more profound than an unfounded arrogance. You see, as I said before, confidence that's not backed up, confidence that is not validated, is just mere arrogance. However, if you have done the work to validate your confidence with competence, then you have earned for yourself an ego. There's a lot of people that have egos, famous athletes, billionaires, entrepreneurs, but they have all earned it. But arrogance is unfounded. And as I just said before, quiet respect backed up by resolute action is always more profound than an unfounded arrogance. More so, you should work hard to be competent and dangerous in all things, so that as a man assured and confident in his own abilities for self-assertion, you don't need to give any value to the opinions of those who can't back up what they say. I've said this before. As I have studied martial arts, as I have become a more dangerous man by being very consistent in training martial arts and training to become dangerous, as I have trained to become a more capable, a more competent, a more ferocious adversary, I have begun to live life in a manner in which I stopped giving a crap about the opinions of those who don't have hands. And that is what training, that's what doing the work to become competent, that's what doing the work to validate your ego will do for you. You will stop caring about the opinions of those who can't back up what they say. You know, I think President Theodore Roosevelt, whose face graces Mount Rushmore, I think he said a quote that very profoundly captures this idea. He said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick, and you will go far." I agree with that. You should speak softly. You should speak with respect. You should not be a trash talker, but your actions should be your big stick that you carry along with you that can validate everything that you say. You shouldn't have to make empty threats. You shouldn't have to speak a whole lot at all. You should just be a man of action, and people will respect that a whole lot more than they respect your empty, arrogant words. And if you decide to be a trash talker, I will say this. You shouldn't write checks with your mouth that your hands can't cash. You should be humble enough to admit to and apologize for when you've bitten off more than you can chew, and wise enough to not speak with an unbridled tongue that might arouse a sleeping giant to whom you are unaware. Just like this guy, talked a bunch of crap, made a whole bunch of empty threats, but when it came time to cash those checks, he wasn't able to. He spoke in a manner that was way outside of his weight class. And I think part of the reason why he spoke like this, part of the reason why he talked like this, is because he's never actually been challenged. He's never actually been held to every word that he says. He's never actually been held to his empty threats by someone who has the quiet confidence in his ability to solve the conflict, and his ability to stand up against these threats. And I think every man should train martial arts so that he can stand steady in everything that he says. He can stand steady and not be intimidated by people who make empty threats to them. He can stand steady and not care about the opinions of those who don't have hands. And I think as a man, if you have not validated that you are who you say you are in a competitive fight, in training, in the gym, then it's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror with confidence. And I've also noticed this. You will notice that the most truly dangerous people that you know, the most truly dangerous people in the world, are also some of the most quiet, some of the most respectful, some of the most humble. You see oftentimes the people with the loudest mouth, the people with the most arrogance, the people with the most boast and loud threats at other people are the people who feel like they have to use their voice to validate themselves because they haven't truly validated themselves physically in person with their own hands. But a guy who trains, a guy who is seriously about it, a guy who knows how to fight, a guy who goes to the gym all the time and trains on how to be dangerous, he doesn't have to speak a whole lot because he's always validated to himself day in and day out that he is able to take care of himself, that he is able to back up what he says with his hands. He spars multiple times a week. For years, he's competed in competitive fights against very, very respectable adversaries. He's proven to himself time and time again, day in and day out, that he is who he says he is, that he can quite indeed cash those checks with his hands that his mouth writes. And therefore, he doesn't have to write a whole lot of checks with his mouth because he's very short in his ability to cash them. So, my friends, I will leave you with this quote again from Teddy Roosevelt. Speak softly and carry a big stick. In the words of Andrew Tate, such is the way of Udon. MD Medic Podcast, we out.